Hi. In today's conversation, I'd like to highlight the importance of creating an outline before beginning the writing process. As writers, when we get handed writing projects, there is a sense of excitement and also a sense of urgency to begin writing immediately. But it's always important to outline the work and get a sense of what's going to be in the article or in the piece before actually beginning the writing. Essentially, an outline is a roadmap of what's going to be in the final product. Outlines look slightly different depending on the size of the piece. Larger projects could include full-length manuscripts or books, for instance, which would be 2,000 words and above. Medium-length projects could include scientific reviews, reviews of the existing literature, or any science communication pieces, which are in the 500 to 2,000 word range. And smaller writing projects could include quick communications and brief reviews or even abstracts, which are in the 300 to 500 word range. Depending on the size of the piece that you'd like to put together, it's always a good idea to begin with an outline or a roadmap of exactly what the final product would contain. For instance, when you're writing a larger piece, such as a full-length manuscript or a book, it's very helpful to begin with outlining what the different sections would contain, what the different chapters would contain, and then have that outline reviewed by whoever it is you're writing for. So everyone who is involved in that project, all stakeholders, are on the same page about exactly what's going to be discussed and about any topics which would be deliberately avoided because it doesn't fit within the purview or within the major conclusions presented by that article. For a medium-length article, it's also important to think about the story, what's going to be in the beginning, how are you going to introduce the topic, what's going to be in the middle, how are you going to convince the reader of the points that you're about to put across, and what's going to be in the end, which is how are you going to convince the reader that the conclusions that you arrived at were logical and practical conclusions which they should take away and keep in mind. For a smaller article, the outline would essentially be 2 or 3 bullet points which the article is trying to convey. Once you have those bullet points down on paper, it becomes so much more easier to then go back and construct a story around arriving at those bullet points and helping the reader get to the conclusion of that smaller piece, even though you're working with fewer sentences and fewer words compared to a larger piece where you have a little bit more leeway in introducing the topic and taking the readers through the journey of arriving at those conclusion points. Many times, writers come to me with a first draft and say, would you be able to review this manuscript? Or would you be able to review this scientific review, or perhaps even an abstract? And I always emphasize on seeing the outline first. It just helps writers get their thoughts together, and it helps the audience, which is the person who is handing you a job, or the person who is handing you the project, get a sense of how the amount of thought you've put in to writing the piece before actually beginning to write it. So think about that, and all the best.